You're listening to the Mile You're In podcast. Everything running related from 100 meters to 100 miles. And now, here's your host, Phil Patterson Jr.
What's going on, everybody? This is the Mile You're In podcast, and today we have a special guest on the show. You guys know I'm not too big with intros, so I'm hoping she don't sue me for this. I know she has a nice one. You know, if this is your first time, welcome. And if you're a return listener, welcome back. So we have a nice topic today, something that's actually bothered me for a couple years. This is something I read years ago, and I've had this discussion with people off and on, and I wanted to bring someone new to the table, per se, for this discussion. So I have Kim from the Run Wave podcast. So Kim, go ahead and introduce yourself first, and then we'll get into the topic.
Hello, everyone. I am Kim. I have a little show called the Run Wave podcast. I am a runner, a former triathlete. Well, I guess I can still say I'm a triathlete. I just haven't done one in a few years. But I have the hardware to prove I am a triathlete. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm an entrepreneur. And yeah, I'm just happy to be on your show. I love when I get to come on other podcast show and see how, you run things.
Well, I appreciate it. And it's funny because, behind the scenes, we've had to make some adjustments for this. And as I was setting up, like, my kids running around making noise, and my wife's like, all right, I'm just going to take them out for an hour. And then I'm texting her, like, you might want to extend the hour because we're having technical difficulties. And then I'm like, oh, God. But that's life, right? Things just happen. But I was wondering, because this morning I woke up, checked my social media, and all of my family and friends that are at least in the Western New York area are covered in snow. So I have to ask, because I know you're up in that area.
Snow?
Are you dealing?
No.
Yes.
Snow is like over for like I'm in New York. I'm in Long Island, which is like 30 minutes from Manhattan. So yeah, our snowy season is over.
Okay.
No snow here.
Because my family, we're all Buffalo people, and
yeah, that's up north.
See, that's my problem being in Florida is I just assume, because Florida is so long, that when I look at other states, other than like California, I'm like, everything's like a square or a circle to me. So when people in New York are like, it's cold or snowing, I just assume it's snowing everywhere. And I forget that it's...
You know what? Because Buffalo is like maybe 6 or 7 hours from here, I think. So yeah, they're closer to Canada. That's probably why it's still, cool up there. Well, I'm enjoying. We're finally getting into the 80s down here, so I'm happy. I'm a Florida boy, born and raised, so. Finally, it's cold here. I mean, it's like 50. Like for runners, they're like, this is their perfect weather. It's still cold to me. I like it when it's like 75. That's like my dream temperature. So we're gonna be cooling until like June in New York. My standard of cooling.
Well, this is actually, now that I think about it, this is actually a perfect way to dive right into the topic, because basically what happened was a few years ago I was working at a running store, and there was a free like newspaper that would be delivered, have all the races in there, and occasionally there were some articles and things like that, and someone had wrote an article about like, I was trying to find it online to see if I could quote specifically, because there were things that really triggered me at the time. And I got to know the person, and I'm friends with the person, and I can see where if you don't know somebody and they make certain statements, then obviously you can take it the wrong way. But I know there's people that still think this way. So the argument, I guess you would say, is that you shouldn't enter races if you're not trying to win or you're not competitive. That those should be when you're going to give 100%. You have if you're not going to maybe win the race or finish on the podium, overall, at least in your age group, something to that sense, or you're going for a PR, something like that. And the reason the weather actually came into play is I signed up back in 2016 and ran the New York Marathon, and I knew just based off of weather, the elevation difference, a lot of different factors now that I think about it, but I knew I wasn't going to PR. I definitely was not competing with anybody in my age group, let alone the elites. It was a fun race. I entered the race for the experience, for the medal too, all the swag, but
the medal is very important.
Yeah. So, and I know I perform better in colder weather, and you don't get those opportunities down here in Florida. So there's so many reasons that we'll get into that people can sign up for a race and why they do, knowing that they're not going to be competitive. And I wanted to start with you, because I personally, after following you on social media and your podcast, I know some of what you're going to say, but if you could explain your experience with entering races not on the competitive side of things.
So my definition of people who have that attitude or mentality are run snobs, because the only people that are really entering these races and that are really competitive are like the professionals. They're the ones that are not paying. We're all paying to race, right? We're not racing for free. Right. We are paying them to torture ourselves. So if you're not a professional and you're not going out to be first, second, or third, who are you to tell someone else that they shouldn't enter a race unless they're going to PR or to finish in first in their age group? So yeah, I have a problem with that. I don't like that attitude, because we're doing this for health and fitness, right? I think most of us recreational runners, we didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to run to win. We didn't even know there were races, first of all, right? When you start running, you're just running for exercise, and then you find out about this whole running and racing community. So yeah, we didn't wake up to say we're going to win this race. There are some recreational runners who do think that, and I love some of them. They entertain me, but yeah, it's for me, it's a no. Enter a race. You have to abide by the guidelines though, because races have time limits. So if a race has a 6:30 time limit, and you're an 8-hour marathoner, then no, you should not enter those races. But if you can finish within the guidelines that the race sets, then, I'm all for anyone, doing this recreational thing that we love called running, because it's for the betterment of ourselves. We're doing this to be healthy, especially in a time like COVID. We're not racing at all right now, right? So,
well, down here in Florida, we never closed.
Yeah, Florida, y'all open, but up here, I just did my first 5K this weekend, and it was like,
yeah, I saw that.
It was like a ghost town. There weren't a lot of people, in the race, and it was very spaced out. So, anyone that's entering races to have fun, that's my mentality of racing. I race to have fun. I race to see the country. I race to see the world. I'm not going in there and saying I'm going to beat everybody. That's not my thing. It's other people's thing, and I don't knock them for that, but it's just not for me. And I don't like to belittle or not encourage people to race because they're not the fastest out there. We should all be encouraging people to get into the sport, because my friends look at me like I'm crazy, right? They're like, you're paying to run that when you can do it for free. We're paying to run. So yeah, if someone has the money and they're paying to enter these races, then let them live. Goodness. And
I'm glad you brought that up. Like, you actually touched on a lot of the points that we're gonna get into, but the first one you mentioned was, we didn't know, like when I first started running, it was it was just to lose weight. And the more I did it, the faster I got, the farther I could go without having to walk or stop. And I was like, I wonder if I enter a race, would that motivate me more? I wonder how I would do. I didn't even look up times until after I had signed up for the race. And it's funny because the race was actually, like most people now, the term is staycation, or is it? No, what's the
runcation?
Runcation. That's what it's called. So I was going somewhere else, and on the way there was going to be a 5K, and I said to my wife, let's hang out there for one night. We'll do the race, and then we'll go to where we're actually going. So I did this race, and I still, like, the picture shows up on Facebook memories every once in a while, and it's hilarious because I was wearing a cotton tank top with these long basketball shorts back, like the early 2000s, like the ones that were down to your calves.
Yes.
And I had on cotton socks with trail shoes, and it was a road 5K. Like, you could tell I didn't know what I was doing. And I think that's one of the nice things about it is you get the experience. You get to learn how races work, like you mentioned, time limits. My biggest thing is corrals, if there is one, or if not, like where you position yourself, because I've been in some, like, back when I was more into the 5Ks, I was on the front line because I was finishing in the top 10 of local ones. And if not, I knew I was at least going to finish in my age group because I got to know the people that participated in the races. And it would really annoy me when there was somebody up in the front and you knew, especially because you've seen them before, but you knew they're going to get trampled or they're gonna take off for the first 30 seconds and be out of breath and then just stop in the middle of everyone. So yeah, the experience of it, and it makes me ask you if you can remember what your first race experience was like.
You know what? My first race was a fun run. It was a 5K at Tanger Outlets, where you shop in the mall. It was like running. It was running through the mall, so it wasn't competitive at all. But so that didn't have any, corrals or anything like that. But my first like real race, I can't even recall if I even, because they don't tell you what a corral is, right? They give you your bib, and you just show up at the race. I mean, all of the races that I've done, I can't really remember getting instructions. I guess you're supposed to read the instructions.
But yeah, we don't really do that. But we just, as long as we know where we're going and when it starts.
Yeah, like who reads the instructions? But as a new runner, I wouldn't fault new runners for doing that, because it's an easy mistake that you can make. But once you've been doing it a while, you know where you're supposed to line up in the race. But yeah, I think race directors can do a little bit better of a job of telling people this, when they're picking up their biz. But I guess it would get a bit redundant for them, but they still should do it, because I'm maybe because I'm seasoned at this point, I don't read instructions because I know now. But yeah, and if I never had a running group, because I had guidance, I had help in the beginning. Okay. Because right away I joined a running group. So, they take you under your wing, and, you go to races together, and you kind of stay together at the start of the race. But I know what you mean, because I'm not the fastest. I might be 6 or 7 corrals back, and there's still slow people in my corral. I'm like, what are you doing here? Right. You don't belong here. You belong back there.
Yeah, because
I can see how really fast people get annoyed when they're at the front, because it annoys me in the middle. So I can see that argument, but you have to give people a break sometimes. Sometimes they just don't know.
Yeah, and like I guess it also depends in the community, because I know like down here we have, there's multiple 5Ks and other distances, but 5Ks are like real huge down here just because of the heat and humidity. They're more popular. More people can tolerate those. And a lot of the race directors from experience now, about 5 minutes before the race, will get on a horn or a speaker and say, if you're not a faster runner, or if you're not going to run, let's say sub 21, sub 20, you know, you might want to move back, like just making a suggestion. And, you know, there's people, they're still not paying attention, because I'm standing there during the national anthem that they'll play occasionally, and people are talking, not even realizing what's going on. So like you said, I get it. And I don't, a lot of times I won't even say anything unless it's like really bad. Like if I look at certain people and like if you're at a 5K and you got on a Camelback or Ultra Vest, I'm thinking
you're not supposed
you
to be
might want to get back in. You know, but it's just it's that experience, because also like something I didn't even know, or you maybe you don't think of because you're not used to it, is when I started doing like half marathons and I got to the aid station, I didn't think, as soon as I grabbed, let's say, the gel or, you know, whatever hydration, the first 2 or 3 aid stations, I wasn't thinking about people behind me. And I just grabbed my stuff and stopped. And then people were trucking me over because they're just grab and go. And it didn't dawn on me until I got bumped into a couple times and I realized what was happening. And then I also realized people weren't looking behind them when they wanted to stop or walk, and they would just stop in the middle of the course, and you're now having to zigzag around or avoid them in any way. And it's that experience. That's why I think it's nice to do, because you get to learn accessories, gear, you know, what you want to do. A lot of races I still sign up for. Sometimes I'm trying new things for the main race. You know, there were things I was wearing to prepare for New York because I knew it was going to be cold, and I wanted to get used to running with gloves and a beanie or arm warmers or when it was cold, I had to start training in the cold, which is nothing like up there, but it's that experience that you get to practice with. So the next thing would be like you had mentioned, the community. So out of all the races you've done, what would you say, I think I might know your answer here, but what would you say was your most fun? Because to me, community is huge for racing as well.
You know what? I was a member of a smaller, it was a national community, but your local chapter is a smaller community. And I hadn't run with a group in years. And maybe, I think 2.5, maybe almost 3 years ago, I joined a running group, and they made everything fun. Everything fun. Like Saturday morning long runs. After the run, there's yogurt, there's fruit, there's coffee, it's free. You hang out in a bar. Like after New York City Marathon, they have like pre-marathon events, shakeout runs. They give free merch. They have parties post-marathon, like party, like with a DJ and a club, like a real party. So yeah, I think the last New York City Marathon that I did, 2019. It's been so long. What year are we in? We're in 2021, 2022, 2019.
2021.
2019 was the last New York City Marathon that I did, and it was my worst New York City Marathon. I've done 4 or 5. 4. I'm terrible with numbers, so don't quote me on this, people. I think I've done 4. It may be 5. But the last one was the worst one because I was freezing. Like my body never warmed up for that race, and I made like a rookie mistake of taking my sweater off too early. So I was just like cold the entire race. And I just remember when I finished, my friends were calling me and they were like, "Are you coming to, the after party?" I was like, "I'm going home." I'm cold, my legs hurt. I was walking over the 59th Street Bridge. I'm going home. And they said, you know what? Don't go home. Come and hang with your community. And, I went to that after event. I laid in those Normatec boots, those like big things.
Yep.
And you know what? I had some food, I had some drinks, and I danced and for a few hours, and that was like my recovery after the marathon. But that community of people, and I made a lot of friends, like real friends from that community. They keep me going. Even right now when we're not meeting, we haven't really met as a group since COVID, since March of last year. And they keep me motivated to run. I'm trying to run more. It's hard. It is hard to run these days because it's just, you have to go at it alone a lot now. Running is coming back to New York. A lot of the smaller run groups are getting back together, but the larger run groups are still not together. So, it's really hard to stay motivated and get out there. But, community is very important. So if you're listening and you don't have a running group, find your tribe, because they make running fun for me. They keep me going. So find your tribe if you don't have one yet.
I actually like that because I think about Black Girls Run. And now, I don't know if this is nationally, but I've noticed a lot of my friends wearing Black Men Run shirts. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's a local or national thing. I haven't looked it up, but there's that. There's down here, we have a very well-known gay community, and they have a group called the Front Runners. That's, it's like, like you said, find your niche that you connect with. Someone, whether it's a group that likes to drink afterwards and they go and get beers, or the really fast group, the racing teams, they like to run together because, like you said, it's more, it motivates you because they will encourage you to do more, not just the run itself, but other things too, whether it's a diet plan you're trying to stick to. It's the accountability that community builds, and by doing those races, you meet these people and you connect with them, because there's so many friends that I have now on social media that have come from races, and it could just be we didn't even actually really interact other than maybe one or two thumbs up or smiles or go get them, words of encouragement. And then days or weeks later, when the photos are coming out, or everyone's on Facebook or whatever platform, and they're looking at the photos, and you're like, oh, I remember that dude, and you look them up, and you're getting random friend requests from people, and you're like, who is this person? And then you recognize them. So that's what I like about the community, because if it wasn't for that community, I would have been still probably stuck on that 5K race mode and wanting to be the fastest, and it was killing my motivation to run. And I hate to say it, but they got me into now this 100-mile addiction. So as much as I love New York, that's still my all-time favorite race. For me, it's this local race in Florida called the Wildcat Ultra that has multiple ultra distances, but it's a 2.5 mile loop. So you're constantly seeing each other, and you got all different distances, all different paces, ages. The first year I did it, there was an 11-year-old out there.
Wow. And
we all thought he was doing the 50K, if anything. And day 2, he's still out there grinding, and you're like, okay. It makes you not want to quit, but it's that community aspect of it. And not only that, but also the crowds. And that's where New York draws me in, because I still get goosebumps when I think and talk about it, because I know everyone talks about when you come off that bridge, and I think it's First Street, which
the 59th Street Bridge, and you run down around the loop.
I know you make that little,
and up, up First Ave.
So I know everybody hypes that up, but for me, And I know this part is a little tricky because there is 2 different initial starts, like depending on if you're on top of the Verrazano. It's Verrazano, right? If you're on top or if you're on the bottom. But I was on the bottom section, so I can't say what it was like for anyone on the top because they went a different way. But all I know is when we were in Brooklyn and we finally made that connection where both sections of the bridge now connect and we're all in the same race. Wow, that crowd. I remember at the time I didn't cuss, and now I do, but I don't cuss on this podcast. But I just remember the words coming out of my mouth, and I wasn't even ashamed to say it. Like back then I didn't like cussing around people. I still did, but I didn't prefer to. And it was so overwhelming that it just came out. And that's what I love about races is whether it's your small 5K and you get it when everyone takes off and then when you come back. Because I think you might have mentioned something about that with your 5K this weekend. Where obviously nothing, in my opinion, competes with New York. That's just from start to finish. But it motivated me even when I realized, okay, this race is kicking my butt. It's so much harder than I thought. Just the people cheering you on and encouraging you, people that don't know you, probably never see you again, but they're looking at you like, wow, you're doing something, awesome, incredible, something maybe they can do but they don't, or they wish they could, depending on their age or their health situation. That's what I think is nice about races, is if we're just always running and staying in our area, even if you're in a group, like you said, it's nothing to the level of entering a race.
But you know what? The New York City Marathon, like, you can't use that as an example because that's like the best race ever.
Right.
I don't think there is a race that I've done that, and not because I live here, but it just is the best. Like, there are people for 26.2 miles cheering you on at that race. And then if you write your name on your bib, they're screaming your name the whole way.
Right.
it's like, I've never done a race that is like the New York City Marathon. It's just nothing can touch it that I've done, and nothing can top it at this point. So if ever you're lucky enough to wait, did you get in on time, or how did you get in?
No, I did it with Team for Kids. I raised money because I wasn't getting in with the lottery, and I was like, all right, I want to do this before the price keeps going up or I just lose the interest. So I just ended up raising the money and got in.
See, we're lucky enough that in New York, with New York Roadrunners, we can run 9 of their races and volunteer one time, and we get into the marathon. So that's why so many New Yorkers, you see, they do it over and over again, because we have that easy in. But it's just one of those races that you want to do over and over again because it's just that good. I can't think of one year where I hated, well, last year, the last time I did, I didn't really like it, but but the overall experience, it's just it's something that you will never forget. Everyone loves that race.
That's the thing. If it wasn't, I think, because I'm so far away, so you got the race entry, the traveling costs, the hotel costs, like just all that. It just, when I did it, I think it was like, in total it ended up costing us like $1,000 just between the race, the traveling. And I actually got it was funny because I was still working at the running store at the time, and the owner had, through whatever connections, like VIP passes that she was able to give me, my wife, and my sister. So even though I had like Team for Kids still had the bus that would take us there, she was able to give my wife and sister VIP passes, so they were actually in the grandstands
at the finish
to watch the finish. Yeah. And they got whatever food and stuff like that. And I thought the VIP after party thing was like special, but it ended up being the same as Team for Kids, because like I remember you take that long walk And
isn't that walk torture?
Yeah, it's bad.
Like you run 26 miles and you have to walk another mile just to get out of the park, and then another half a mile after that. That's the most torturous part of the race. No one talks about that.
No, and it was, so what happened to me was, as I'm going, so I took the VIP sticker and put it on top of my Team for Kids sticker on my bib, and they were like, oh, VIP goes this way, and I was like, oh, but like, if I go this way, can I still get to the Team for Kids section? Because I wanted to go to both. I didn't know how this worked. And they're like, I don't know. And they're asking all these people. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just go. So I take the walk all the way around. You get the coat and everything. And now I'm like, wait, like, I didn't even get to go to any of the sections. I was now out. So now I'm like trying to explain this to the people.
And you can't go back.
Look, I got... No, so somehow I was able to convince somebody to let me go to the Team for Kids section, because it was like, I guess the tent was right there. So I go in there, and then I start talking to some other people that had the VIP, and I was like, it was the same thing. So I could have saved myself all that walking, all that stress, all that, because like, for me at least, thankfully, my hotel was right there. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's called the Central Park Hotel. It was like maybe a mile from the race. So it wasn't too bad of a walk back there. But yeah, it's like you said, it's hard to say that that's community. But for me, the reason I mention that as community is even just the words of encouragement everybody gives, because whether it's your small race, obviously 5Ks and even like 10Ks, I feel like you're giving more of a full-on sprint type effort, to where there's less communication, because we're huffing and puffing more, and we're out of breath. We're trying to conserve energy. Where halves and fulls, we're a little bit more paced, and there's a little bit more conversation. Some people I see have full-on conversations the entire time, and I'm like, maybe you guys should be running faster.
That's what I always say. Like, if you're talking, you can run faster.
Yeah, because there's some people, like, I've been in races where it's like out and back, and both times I see them, I'm like, you guys are still talking? Like, you
they're
guys
like
ain't running hard enough. But yeah, but see, then that's when it, this topic kind of comes back to me, because I'm like, you know what? They're probably not entered into it for that reason. Because like, I remember when I was competitive, I would check the results, and sometimes I'd look, I'd be like, man, this guy had a really terrible race. He's so much faster than that. And then come to find out he was pacing somebody, or he was just coming back from an injury and trying to get back into shape. Or like last year, I had run a race, and to this day, I still swear I had some part of COVID, but I didn't, like, the only thing I had was like the breathing issues, but I had my taste, I had my smell, like I wasn't sick. I just, all of a sudden my breathing just was terrible for like almost 2 months. And I had just come from, I had recently come from a hospital where there wasn't, COVID was still new and people weren't following protocol. So I wondered if, it had been a couple weeks, maybe it finally got to my system. And now I was not wanting to enter races, because I was like, oh, this is going to be embarrassing. People know I'm faster than this, and I'm going to be running slow. And it was that attitude, like you said, like I started to feel like a snob, like too prideful. And it's like, just if you're doing it to improve yourself or just to have fun, who cares? Like, go out there, enjoy it, because you mentioned it too. It's our money. You can spend it how you want to. So, as long as I'm not getting in your way, or vice versa, spend your money, have your fun, get the experience, the memories. Because not everyone, you mentioned it again, that a lot of people, when I was at the running store, would come in and ask us, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing my first race. What kind of tips, suggestion can you give me? I didn't have that, so I just went in. Now, I at least had common sense. Like, I started looking around, and I'm like, all right, let me step back like 5 or 6 rows, because there were no corrals at that race. But just looking around at the people, I'm like, all right, I could probably compete with some of these people just based off of look. But you know, when you got, like, for the dudes at least, no shirt, and you got the little 3-inch split shorts,
you know they mean business.
I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll stand back. I'll hang back, because I'll never forget my first marathon. I went all the way to the back, because I'm like, you know what? I have no experience with this. Even in my training, my longest run was like maybe 15 miles. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going straight to the back, and I'm standing next to this lady who I believe was in her 80s, and I was like, you can go in front of me. She's like, no, I'm gonna walk this whole thing. I said, all right, well, in that case, I think I'll beat you. You know, and we kind of joked. She's like, yeah, I'm walking this whole thing, so you can definitely go in front of me. But that was that humble attitude at least I had, was like, all right, I know nothing about what I'm getting into other than one foot in front of the other in aid stations, but it's a whole new battle here. And it's that experience, because if you could remember, what was probably one of the biggest mistakes you made in a race that you wish you would have either known about or experienced prior to that you could have avoided?
I don't know that I ever made a big mistake in a race. I mean, probably one thing that I learned about racing was to run the tangents. Because when I first started racing, my mileage was always way over what the race distance was. So I don't know if I was like hanging out, dancing, what I was doing at the races. But, you know, eventually someone told me, you know, you're not running the tangents. So I think that's one thing that I learned pretty early on to do. Yeah, like what to wear as well is like I mean, I'm a weird runner because I don't like to be cold. Right. So people look at me and they're like, what are you wearing? Like, I'm always like, I'm dressed.
Yeah, I saw you in a hoodie at least at the start of your 5K. I was like, what? I'm always cold. Like I have to have on, like if it's summer, I'm in a tank top, but if like now I'm in a hoodie, I have a shirt under the hoodie. I might have something under that as well. But you know, I take my layers off when I get hot, because at the finish I was in a t-shirt, you know, but I put the hoodie back on after. I saw it.
But yeah, clothing it's been difficult. Not difficult, you know, I've learned how to manage what I wear, and you know, I wear things that I can easily take off and tie around my waist and things like that. But yeah, just like as a new runner, I wish someone told me about what shoes to wear as well, or to get fitted for shoes. Because yeah. I wore those Nike Frees. I don't know if you remember those from back in the day, and my feet were killing me. You know, they market them as running shoes, but they're not. They're wearing shoes. You're not supposed to run in those. So yeah, I wish someone was around in the very beginning to tell me, you know, what to wear on my feet, because that was painful. But I learned, you know, I joined a running group, and you know, they told me to go to a running store and to get, you know, fitted for shoes. So although that running store, they fit me for the wrong shoes. So do your research. Do your research, people. Like, don't just go with what people tell you to, and order from a company that lets you return if it doesn't work, because the sneakers that I had, they hurt my feet. They were New Balance. They were so, like, I'm a neutral runner. I don't need support and things like that. So the shoes they gave me were like stability shoes, and they were totally wrong. So yeah, just find your tribe and get help if you're a beginner, because it seems like it's easy to get up and go run. It should be easy, right? But you can't just put on a cotton shirt and go outside and run. Like, you're gonna get rubbed. It's like no one tells you that in the beginning. But yeah, it's so different. I'm like jumping all over the place, but it's just so different now than it was when I started in 2012. Like, we were on Instagram, but it wasn't how it is now. Like, there were no daily people posting their daily runs, posting all this,
Right.
stories didn't exist. Like, we were on Facebook back then. We weren't like really even on Instagram. So the running community has evolved so much in the 9 or so years that I've been doing this, and it's great. You know, I like to see evolution. It's good, you know, that there are new runners popping up every day. I see new people online all the time, and you know, it's great that we're expanding as a community. New people are coming in. We're learning from the new people, because I learn things. People come on my podcast and I learn things from them. Although the last 2 guests I had on, they told me, like, who's on Facebook anymore?
Yeah, I was listening to that and I was laughing because I'm like, I don't know if it was you or one of them, but you guys were saying like your mom is still on Facebook, and that made you realize. Yeah. So,
yeah, my mom is like on Facebook every day. So that's when I saw that I should maybe get off of Facebook a little bit. But they made me feel so old. I'm like, there's like no one's on Facebook anymore.
I feel like Facebook is definitely, like you said, it's a lot of the older community that we can still connect with, or people that just don't want multiple social media. So they're like, you know what, I already have Facebook. I'm just going to stick with this. So I still use it because majority of, like, I get more interactions with it, but I definitely spend more time on Twitter and Instagram than scrolling through Facebook.
Yeah, like I'm on probably Instagram. I try to tweet a little bit, but I just can't get into Twitter. Like, I was on Twitter when Twitter started in 2008. Like, I have an old account that has like 2,000 followers from 2008 that I don't use anymore. But yeah, Twitter was big back then to me. Now I can't get into Twitter anymore. But Instagram is good.
And I think I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I didn't even factor that in when I was thinking of different things to talk about, is the social media part of it. Because I have a lot of friends that were runners back when things, and it mainly happened from the running store, but like they'll tell me stories about how you had to look up or call places to find out results, because there was no the internet wasn't a thing yet, and maybe a local newspaper would have it in there, or you would just have to go to the running stores and ask, hey, was anybody at this race? Who, what did they run? Who won? Where now you could just, within hours of the race being over, you can type in the race somewhere and find the results, or people are posting it on social media and pictures. And I think that's also a nice thing about races now, because you get to share that experience where, and it creates that FOMO, that fear of missing out.
Yes.
Because there are so many races that I sign up for, and I regret signing up for them as I do it. But I know if I don't, when I start seeing all the pictures and everything going on, I'm gonna wish I had went. And that's that community, because especially if it's a race you've done before, like I'm sure you in New York, it's like once you experience that and it's gonna happen every time you enter that race, it's just, that's what it is. You want to be a part of that, and you can't wait to share your photos and your especially if you do get a personal best. You want to tell everybody
right away.
It's nice. So I remember, this is a funny story, when I finished New York, I don't know what happened, but at the time I was using a Garmin, and it let me save the run and everything, but for some reason, whether it was the watch or the app, I can't remember, but they weren't syncing. So I wasn't able to like post the screenshot of me running. All I could do is say, hey, I just ran, and maybe send some pictures. But like friends that might like mess with you, they're like, oh, how do we know you really ran it? Like, I want to see the map and the route and all that. And it's that, again, community of sharing. And something funny you had mentioned, like with the shoes, that's huge. Coming from someone who used to work at a running store and saw so many people coming in wearing the wrong shoes, and maybe went to another store. A good friend of mine came in one day and she was like, oh, I just spent $200 on these shoes and inserts, and her feet were pronating so bad. I was like, look, I hate to tell you this, but I would take that back right now, because they put you in the total opposite shoes that you should be wearing. But even just new pairs, they're not, models change, or you may have 3 versions of the same exact shoe, but there could be stitching defects and things like that it's good to get that in an actual racing experience. Because when I ran New York, I'm gonna show you, I still actually have the shoes. These were my favorite shoes at the time.
Under Armour?
Under Armour Bandits.
Wow.
It was crazy. So working at the running store, you get free entries to races, free stuff from time to time, because the brands want you to wear their stuff and promote them. And I tried the shoes and I was like, wow, these shoes are really nice. And I started doing runs in them, and like I really loved them. And when the rep at the time found out I was going to run New York and I really loved the shoes, he gave me like a whole kit, a new pair of the shoes, like everything for the weather. Like I was all Under Armour decked out. You would have thought I was like a sponsored elite Under Armour athlete. And I was like, you know what? I've used these shoes before. I have 2 of them right now. This is just a brand new pair in a new color. Mm-hmm. Within the first mile, as you're going up that bridge, the insole starts sliding on me. Ooh. And like rubbing the inside of my ankle. And I'm like, all right, do I stop to fix this? Do I just let it slide out and see what happens? Like, thankfully, as we started going down the bridge, it readjusted and never was a problem after that. But it's one of those things, like I started panicking, and that's why I had asked you if you had any like experience of a mistake, because for me it's like, wow, I should have at least done at least a mile in these shoes just to make sure there was nothing wrong with them before starting a 26.2 mile race in a place I've never run in my life.
See, I don't think I would have done that for 26 miles, but the race that I did on Saturday, I wore a brand new pair of sneakers. Like I don't have a problem wearing new sneakers. I do it all the time. In racing, I wouldn't do it in a marathon. I break my marathon shoes in, but for a 5K or a 10K, all the time new shoes. I don't buy that myth of not racing in new shoes, because I do it all the time. Yeah. I don't buy that.
I think it depends. Are you neutral?
I'm neutral.
Okay. I think that's what helps, because I'm neutral as well. If anything, I'm more like supinating. So for me, as long as the width in the toe box is wide enough, because my feet do swell in the longer ones. So like you said, a 5K, I'm okay. But there have been some shoes that, man, at the 5K mark, I took them right. As soon as we were done, I took them off because my foot swelled so fast in them. Because to me, a 5K, you're running harder. You're pounding the ground more than a slow. Even though those other races, you're on your feet more, that pounding for me just swells my feet up quick. And one time my feet were falling asleep in one pair of shoes, and I was like, man, thank God I found this out now before, like you said, going into a longer race. But I think that's a nice thing about it too, is for the 5Ks, it's that shorter distance that you can practice those things. You know, maybe you're not going to do something like that in a full marathon, but I still experiment in 100 milers. Like every 100-mile race, I've done something different, whether it's a nutrition or I changed the plan up because I learned something new from the previous race, and I'm like, okay, the next one, because there's no way for me to really run 100 milers on my own. I've done it, but it's just not the same as running them in a race atmosphere. So, you know, all those tie back into, I don't see why anybody should like avoid entering a race if they're not going to be competitive, because we all get the same medal. Even if you finish first place, you might get an extra award, and you get this special recognition and maybe a few more photos because the photographer is not as fatigued by the time we get there. But we all get the same shirt, the same medal, the same swag, the same bib, unless you're an elite runner in a big race, you get your name on it. But otherwise, the local ones, you're still getting, if anything, your bib's just single digits and ours is double and triple digits. What would you say, I know we've kind of touched on a few, but if you had like any other tips for, or something to motivate someone who's on the fence to enter a race because they're, they don't feel they're fast enough, or they might have to take a lot of walk breaks?
My advice would be like Nike, just do it. Because in the grand scheme of things, nobody is looking at you. Right? No one cares what you're up to. Everyone is focused on their race, their pace, so don't think that you can't go out there and, run whatever race you want because you're worried about what others will think, or say about you, because there are some people out there that may be looking at you, but most people are not. So just go out there, do your own thing, and once you get the first one under your belt and you get that excitement, you get that energy out of the way, you're going to be hooked. Especially if you get a race that has a good after party. Find one of those. Right. Find one of those, because once you find one of those races, you'll be spending your money on races like nothing. But yeah, just do it. And if you can find like a buddy to run with, try to run with that person, because that that little motivation from someone to your right or to your left, that's going to keep you going. So yeah, just get out there. I have family members that ask me, how can I do this? How can I do? And I give them tips and, tricks. And, I tell everyone I walked before I ran, right? I did C to 5K. Mm-hmm. A lot of runners did C to 5K. So, my 70-year-old aunt, she says she wants to run. I sent her the C to 5K app. That's how I started. And that's how a lot of runners get started. So, yeah, it's tough to get out there. Like the first day, I went out alone. I joined a group and I went out. I didn't know anybody. But that's like, it's scary, but that's what you have to do if you want to achieve your goals. Nothing in life worth wanting is easy. So just, get your motivation, listen to your podcast, put your favorite playlist on. I don't run with music anymore, but I did it in the beginning, and that's what got me through. So just go for it.
And I'll back that up 100%. I know I made the joke earlier about 5Kers with the camelbacks and whatever, but being in, when I worked at the runner store, sometimes we would volunteer at aid stations and things like that. So my whole thing was being there to also encourage those, because for us, I don't know about you, I initially was in those 6 to 7 minute miles, and now because I'm doing longer distances, I'm hanging around 10, 11, 12 minute miles. And I'm like, man, this is just miserable compared to when I was running fast and they just flew by. I think about that and it makes me want to encourage people that are even slower than that. Like, hey, look, it don't matter, because at the end of the day, my friend said it best. 100 miles is 100 miles. Take that all the way down to a 5K. A 5K is a 5K. There's a lot of people that can't even do that. Even if it does mean you're walking some of it or walking all of it, I know people that can't even walk the 5K. So, it's, I don't think they have it in New York, but globally and thankfully we've had the opportunity down here. There's a race called Wings for Life. It's a global run. It's, something we could talk about another time, but a lot of people out there, at first the ego was like, why are you signing up for this? Because you're only going to do 3 miles where most of these people are doing at least 10. But it was that, it's for a good cause. It's the community. The after party is amazing. It's a new challenge. So get out there and have fun, because if you're just running by yourself, or you're just always running, even with a group, you're not getting the full fun and experience and benefit that running can provide. And as we've mentioned, that can motivate you to try to run faster, try to run farther. And at the end of the race, you may think no one's really caring, but I've seen some races where people stayed because they knew there was still 2 or 3 more people, and they cheered them on as if they had won the race. So, you know, it's the motivation, the community, the learning aspect of it. There's so many things that make me want to encourage people to just keep getting into and entering races, to not be a run snob, as you said best. So as we wrap it up, I'll definitely put all your information in the show notes, and I'm gonna promote you like crazy because ever since I discovered your podcast, I'm like hooked. I joked with you the other day, like I've never laughed as much during a run. So I have to be careful when I listen to your podcast, just because the chemistry you have with people, it's just, there's always laughing when I listen to your podcast, or at least smiling, and I'm like, it's affecting my breathing and my tempo. But you know, I know you have 2 podcasts, and you can't, we're asking you nicely not to say the full name of the second one.
Well,
for all of my listeners.
Well, look, the name of the second one doesn't have a curse word in it. Our tagline is a curse word.
Oh, okay. See, I had that part confused. Okay, so she has 2 podcasts. So go ahead and tell people about both of them. Here's your chance to just, where they can find you on social media. Again, I'll put all this in the show notes for everybody, but just a quick little rundown of what you do on the air.
So I have the Run Wave podcast, which is my running podcast. I talk about all things running. You know, I get to interview different runners. I have a run crew series that is going right now, and it's actually been very popular. You know, people like to get to know different run crews in different cities across the states and the world. So I'm enjoying doing that. And, you know, I dig into some of these racing companies when they do things that are not correct. I put them on blast, and, you know, they
rock
come,
and roll.
They come on. And they sometimes come on the show, and we discuss what I talked about. So yeah, I just like talking about, you know, topics that we don't talk about publicly. You know, I want to bring those to light, and, you know, just keep running fun, and just, you know, meet new people, and just introduce other people to runners that they may have never come in contact with. So yeah, listen to the Run Wave if you can. I also have another podcast called Lay Twins Experience. It is with my good friend Danietta. We met through running. But that podcast has nothing to do with running.
Yeah. But I wanted to have you share that, just because, you know, we're not just runners, we're average people, and a lot of the elite runners that I've become friends with, they're people just like us. And
exactly,
you know, I probably get more love on my non-running post than I do my running stuff a lot of times. So I feel like anyone who might listen to your podcast and then want to listen to that, you know, as they get to know you more, will enjoy it. Definitely different audience possibly, but
totally different audience.
Yeah.
That podcast is rated R, so we're on a little hiatus right now. We should be back in a couple of weeks, but yeah, that's a weekly show as well. So if you want a little entertainment from a couple of runners that's not running related, come on over and listen to that show. And yeah, I like to have fun on my shows. You know, I don't want it to just be like education, drilling things down people's throat. I want people to come on and laugh, and like you said, laugh when they listen to the show, because that makes a podcast entertaining. It makes you want to, you know, come back and listen to it week after week. So yeah, the Run Wave is a year old. I just hit a year, and you know, it took a turn because I wanted to do in-person interviews, but COVID hit. Like, I recorded my first 2 shows in February, and then COVID hit in March. So like that, you know, the podcast took a totally different turn. But yeah, I'm enjoying doing it, and I'm enjoying meeting people like you and coming on your show. So it's been a wild ride, for sure.
Well, we definitely appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we'll have you on another episode. For everyone that's listening, check her out. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, hopefully you'll be subscribed. But until the next episode, you guys get out there, have fun, and look for a race to sign up for. Don't be discouraged.
Yes, what he said. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Mile You're In podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check out previous episodes and more at heelstriker954.com.